How do you move forward when every memory is haunted by the red flag you didn't see? Every step feels like a reminder of the pain you'd brought upon yourself. You thought love would be enough to fix everything, but it wasn't. The one red flag you ignored is now the wound that refuses to heal. You didn't want to believe it, but the truth was there all along. Now, as you nurse the broken pieces of your heart, can you ever forgive yourself for not listening? You told yourself it would get better, but deep down, you knew the red flag was always there. Now you're left to wonder if things could have ended differently. It felt like love, but it was really a trap. You ignored the red flag, and now your heart is paying the price. You let the red flag slip by, telling yourself you were overreacting. Now, every moment without them feels like a reminder of the mistake you made. Why didn't you listen? That red flag wasn't just a warning. It was a lifeline you refused to grab. And now you're drowning in heartbreak. You thought you could outrun it. The red flag was small, barely noticeable, but now it's grown into the storm that's tearing your world apart. The moment you chose to ignore that flag, you sealed your fate. Now, all you're left with is an aching heart and 1,000 what ifs. You've seen the signs, felt the warning, but love made you blind. Now, heartbreak is your only companion, and you wonder how it all went wrong. It seemed so perfect at first, but then there was that red flag, and now you're lost in the aftermath, wondering how things could have been different. How do you pick up the pieces of a broken heart when you knew from the start that something wasn't right? You ignored the red flag, and now it's too late. You kept telling yourself it was nothing, but deep down you knew the red flag was always there, and now it's too late to go back. When you look back, you realize that the smallest warning could have saved you. But now you're left with an empty space where love once lived. You tried to justify it, tried to convince yourself that the red flag was no big deal. Now you can't escape the pain of what could have been. Every moment you ignored the red flag, you were slowly walking into the heartbreak you never saw coming. Now, there's no escaping it. It was a small thing, barely noticeable at first, but the moment you ignored it, everything began to unravel, and now you're left with nothing but heartache. That one red flag, it was never meant to be ignored, but you did, and now the truth is undeniable. The pain is real, and you have no choice but to face it. You thought love would shield you from the pain, but it didn't. That red flag was your warning, and now it's too late to turn back. You chose to stay when you should have walked away. That red flag was your sign, and now heartbreak is the only thing left behind. You ignored it, dismissed it, thought it was nothing. But now The one red flag you should have seen has completely shattered your heart. It's easy to say, I didn't see it coming, but the truth is, you did. You just didn't want to admit it. Now you're left with the aftermath of heartbreak. Every moment you stayed, you ignored the signs. And now, as you sit in the wreckage of what once was, you can't help but wonder, could you have avoided the pain? The heartbreak is deeper than you ever expected, and now you see it. The one red flag you let slip away. But is there any way to move forward now? It's a cruel irony. The thing that could have saved you was the one thing you ignored. Now you're left alone, with a heart that may never be the same. How do you repair what's been broken when you knew all along that the red flag was waving? Now, it's too late to fix what's been lost. The red flag didn't look so big at the time. Now, it's all you can think about as your heart breaks over the mistake you couldn't take back. It was just a small thing at first, something easy to dismiss, but now it's the reason your heart is shattered into a million pieces. You thought it didn't matter, that it was just a passing thought, but now that red flag haunts every moment, and the heartbreak feels endless. You convinced yourself that love was enough to ignore the signs, but now you're faced with the aftermath of that one red flag you ignored. The pain doesn't come from what you didn't know. It comes from knowing you saw the warning and chose to stay. Now your heart pays the price. You knew better, but you stayed. That red flag was a cry for help, and now you're drowning in the consequences of ignoring it. It was just a feeling, a small doubt in your mind, but that one red flag has now become the wreckage of everything you thought you had. You let love blind you to the truth, and now, as you sit with the wreckage, the only thing you can hear is the echo of the red flag you ignored. You didn't listen when your gut told you something was wrong, and now you're left picking up the shattered pieces of your heart. Will you ever trust yourself again? When you saw that one red flag, did you choose to ignore it, thinking it would all be fine? Look where that decision has led you. Tears, confusion, and the haunting feeling of regret. You told yourself it wasn't a big deal, but now your heart aches with every passing moment. The one red flag you overlooked has now unraveled everything. How could you have known that ignoring that tiny detail would lead to this gut-wrenching pain? You're broken inside, but could you have prevented this heartbreak? Every moment you chose to look the other way, you were sealing your own fate. Now, all you can do is feel the weight of regret. When will the aching end? In the silence of your heart, that one red flag screams louder than ever. The pain cuts deeper now that it's too late to turn back. You thought you could handle it, that love would conquer all. But the truth is, you ignored the signs, and now the consequences are impossible to deny. That one moment, that one decision, how could you not have seen it? Now, all you're left with is the painful echo of a heart that's been torn apart. The red flag was right there in front of you, and yet you chose to ignore it. Now your world is crashing down, and all you can do is wonder how it all went wrong. Heartbreak is painful, but what's worse is knowing that you saw the warning signs and decided to keep walking anyway. Can you ever forgive yourself for that? You tried to hold on, tried to make it work, but that red flag, it was never going to disappear, and now your heart is paying the price. They say hindsight is 20/20, but now that you're heartbroken, you see exactly where you went wrong. Why didn't you listen? Love blinds us to the obvious, but now you're facing the truth. The red flag was there all along. Why didn't you see it? You thought your love could fix everything, but in reality, that one red flag was the ticking time bomb you never noticed. And now it's exploded in your face. The signs were always there, flickering like a warning light, but you ignored them. Now the heartache is overwhelming and you can't escape it. How did you get here? One moment, everything was perfect, and the next, you're left with a broken heart, wondering how you could have missed the warning signs. You convinced yourself you could fix them, but you didn't see the red flag until it was too late. Now, all you're left with is an aching emptiness inside. It's always those small, quiet things that we overlook. But when the silence breaks, you're left with a broken heart, wondering if things could have been different. Love doesn't always save us. Sometimes it leaves us feeling empty and alone. And when you look back, all you see is that red flag you ignored. You wanted to believe in the best, but now you're facing the reality. The red flag was never meant to be ignored, and now it's cost you everything. The heartache feels like a shadow that won't leave you. It's all because you ignored the one sign that could have saved you from this pain. You ignored it because you didn't want to believe the truth. Now, the truth is all you have left, and it's tearing you apart. How do you move forward when your heart is broken by the truth you knew all along? That one red flag, it was always there, and you missed it. The ache you feel now is the price of denial. That red flag was a warning, but you chose to dismiss it, and now it's too late. Every glance, every word, they were signs you chose to ignore. And now, all you're left with is the crushing weight of regret. The hardest part about heartbreak isn't just the pain, it's the realization that you knew better, yet still chose to ignore the signs. The red flag was a whisper at first, but now it's a scream you can't escape. Will you ever forgive yourself for not listening? In the quiet of your thoughts, you can hear it, the moment you should have turned away. Now you're here, heartbroken and lost, with nowhere to turn. You tried to make it work. You tried to believe in them, but that red flag, it's too loud to ignore now. Can you ever fix the damage? It started small, a flicker of doubt. You brushed it off. Now it's a full-blown storm that's ripping your heart apart. Heartbreak doesn't always come with warning signs, but when it does, we often ignore them. Now you're left to pick up the pieces of a love that was doomed from the start. You knew something wasn't right, but you didn't listen. Now you're alone with the consequences, your heart heavier than ever. The one thing you never thought would happen, happened. You saw the warning, yet you chose to stay. And now the heartbreak is unbearable.